We are back. Giants baseball, past, present, and future. I'm Ralph Tyko. My co-hosts are Timmy Haller and Vasu Vaddiparty. And we're here to talk a little Giants ball. It's a beautiful day in Northern California. How is it down south, guys?
Well, down in the desert, it's about 118 degrees, so it's miserable here.
Well, it was 90 down. It was 90 down around the Dodger Stadium area, so I'm trying to get myself to the water here before the night's over at some point. But stopped over somewhere.
You're working tonight's game at Dodger Stadium, I take it, sir?
Today they were already on. It was 1 o'clock our time. The Dodgers beat the Pirates.
Well, what do you know? The Dodgers won today. Okay, good. Now, hey, the Giants are winning right now, so it looks like hopefully with Baumgartner pitching, there will be no change in the standings this evening.
He's pitching great.
Well, the Mets are in extra innings, and it was another one of those heartbreaking two-out Familia blown save with 2 out in the top of the ninth. They've taken it to extras, and the wheels have fallen off. So I want to talk the Giants because they're my second team. It's like having 2 children. I was a New York Giant fan, as everybody knows, and then a Met fan, and then came out to California and got to be with the Giants, ironically, all these many years. So my heart is in both places, but I want to note that because my heart is in both places, and I was a big Timmy Lincecum fan, he was released earlier this week by the Angels, and that kind of went unheralded, talked about in the Bay Area. Not much was made of it, but his career may be at an end, and that's always kind of sad. You guys want to talk about him at all, and give me your view of him? Obviously, 3-time world champion, Cy Young winner, all those things. What do you guys think?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. You first, Vasu.
Okay. Well, I always liked him. He was a good guy. I got to know his dad a little bit, and he clearly had the success. But I always thought, and I'm just a novice eye at watching this stuff in terms of, I played college, so I know a little bit about it. But I just think that I always thought those mechanics were going to come back and haunt him, and sure enough, it did. He got injured. He was able. Now, if he could have come back any of those years and maybe did an inning or 2 stint at the time to be a middle relief when they were looking for middle relief pitching or somebody to set up whoever the closers were at the time, then I thought that might have been good because you just blow it out for an inning or 2 and get your arm strength back that way to be able to be some kind of guy. But as far as starting, once you get through that 3rd time in the order, and if you lose your stuff and you're used to a certain way of pitching, he was throwing 93, 94, and then it was down to 88, 89, and he still thought he could be a starter. And one good start with the Angels started against the A's this year, but ever since then, that the 3 or 4 starts that he had after that, his ERA grew to like 8.90 or 9.80 or something like that. But it wasn't good. Whether it was 8 or 9, it wasn't good. And the Angels finally.
Vasu, do you have any memories of him that stand out in your head with the Giants when he was winning all those games and taking them to the top of the hill?
Oh, sure. 2009, the year before they won the first championship. He was the 2nd Cy Young, I believe. I think he won in 2008 and 2009 as a Cy Young, and he was just dominant. I remember in 2010 when he pitched against the Rockies. They were fighting. I forgot who they were. They were fighting the Padres in 2010 for the division in August. And Ubaldo Jimenez, who's kind of another guy that's kind of gone down, but they both were pitching, and it was a big matchup on a Wednesday night. That Tim Lincecum and Ubaldo Jimenez. It ended up being a 2-1 game. The winning run scored on a throwing error, but both pitchers were phenomenal that night. And then when it got to the postseason and the Giants were having their struggles with getting through the 6th, 7th, and 8th, Bochy has him go in the playoffs, and he throws 2 innings, and he's just blowing people away. And you remember the Texas series where through the 6th and 7th, and then Bochy had enough bullpen at that point to take care of the 8th and 9th inning, and I just remember him blowing people out for the 2 innings that he did in the postseason. I thought after the next year it happened, that he was starting to struggle and you could see the decline happening. Same thing happened. I thought maybe his best spot, because they were unsure if it was going to be Casilla or Romo, as you both know. 2010 was Brian Wilson, 2012 was Romo, and 2014 was Casilla. And they flip-flopped from 012 to 14, and they weren't as solid as even they. I know they're not very solid now, but they weren't very solid then. They were better than they were now, but I thought that Tim Lincecum for an inning could have been a great closer, and I thought it would have been great for him to come in and either be an 8th inning guy or a 9th inning guy if he just didn't have to rely on 3 or 4 pitches and just go from there. And so those are some of the memories.
Well, we don't know how. I don't know, or at least I don't know how quickly his arm would have bounced back as a closer. It's not just that game; it's the next game, and sometimes 3 games in a row. So,
but Ralph, you can train for that. John Smoltz did it. He got 55 saves and then went back to starting the year after that. You can train your arm to do that because the number of pitches you're on is not as much.
Well, I know less about it than you do, but I would surmise that not everybody has that ability, that the resiliency to come back the next day. I don't know if you could train for that. I don't know. If you could, a lot more guys would be doing it, I'm thinking. But that notwithstanding, you had good memories of him. Timmy. Give me Timmy. Give me some Timmy.
Yeah. So much, kind of now is sort of a blur almost, but of course I remember his 2 no-hitters, both against the Padres. And I agree that to some extent with Vasu regarding his ability to come out of the bullpen. I think he would have been better, more effective, throwing an inning or 2, either in, late inning relief or even as a closer. I think in the case of if we're going to compare apples to oranges, say a Lincecum to a John Smoltz, Lincecum's problems came from his lower body and his mechanics. And, that strain that he put on his lower body obviously affected him later with his velocity. And, his arm was always okay, but it's like us. It's like asking us to go out when we're 10 and going and running around the park, and then to asking us to do it at 30 and run around the park. And then when we're 50, we're going to go run around the park. And then when we're 70, you're going to ask us to go run around the park. Age and wear and tear, it takes,
around the park, and I can't run. I'm going to be 70.
Yeah, so my point being that things break down eventually over time. And the stress and the strain that Timmy was putting on his lower body affected everything else, the rest of him. Tim is not a big guy. He's 5'9", 150 pounds, probably soaking wet. So, he doesn't have a frame. He doesn't have a lower body that can allow to take that wear and tear, especially that wrenching and that stride, that phenomenal stride he took. Eventually it all broke down, and it was his hip
it was a violent motion. It wasn't very compact.
It really was. One thing I do remember, and just watching him later on, was his ineffectiveness with his changeup. He used to throw a lot of scuds up there. He would, consistently miss very low, if not in front of the plate. And I started, probably in about 2013 is really when you started to see some of that really break down. And it's an unfortunate thing because he brought such great life to the city. And while he was on his game, he was the best pitcher in the National League for a few years running. He was a great pitcher to watch. and it's sad to see him, fizzle out like this. But that's the nature of this game. That's the beast. And as far as like Smoltz, he had that core and in that lower body and that strength. He had the Tommy John surgery. He had that surgically repaired elbow, and then he came back and he was extremely effective in that short run as a short reliever. He was phenomenal too. It's just 1 in a million. Those guys are 1 in a million. It's you can say it can be done, but only one time. John Smoltz is a good example of that. I think another guy that did great conversion from a starting pitcher to a reliever was Eckersley. He was probably one of the most renowned starting pitcher that converted into a phenomenal closer. So, it doesn't happen.
He was a 20-game winner with Cleveland, and it was terrific. And he didn't do that voluntarily. If I remember correctly, initially, I don't think that was his cup of tea, but it certainly worked out. He was tremendous.
Hey, Vasu, I've got a question for you, Vasu. Where's the party, Vasu?
I'm not sure where the party's going to be tonight. We're figuring out where to go, but I want to go somewhere near the water. But I live in
Are you at Dodger Stadium, right? Are you at Dodger Stadium still right now?
No. Oh, no. That game ended at 4 o'clock. We left. I came back to the hotel. We're at a couple of us are at this place. There's like 5 of them over here between Hollywood and Santa Monica called Barney's Beanery. I know we're giving them a free plug, but Barney's Beanery, great sports bar. Watching all the baseball games right here, watching the Olympics.
Well, I know I can hear him. I can hear him behind you, so I was wondering where you were.
Yeah, I can get outside. Is this too much? I can get outside if you guys want.
No, that's
well,
good. Hey, I thought he meant the party. Where's the party going on? The party's always going on in my head.
It's always going on in my name, Ralph.
Absolutely. Well, you've got the good life. You travel all over California, and you just party with the big boys from Fox, and you've got it made.
Well, no.
All right. Let me just say one thing about Tim Lincecum that I was reminded came to mind in my head could be the best trade that was never made. They came very close to trading Lincecum because of that throw across the body. They thought, how long can this guy last? And it was an outfielder with Toronto, if memory serves, and I can't think of his name. But that goes down as a trade that was a good thing for the Giants, was not made. Do you remember that, guys?
I don't remember exactly who the option was, but I know that even there have been a lot of trade discussions with him in 2011, 2012 because they just didn't know where his stuff was going. But I don't remember exactly.
No, this is this is before he became that big a winner. This goes back further than that.
When he was in the minor league?
No, he was up maybe after his first year. They just thought that that delivery wasn't good for the long term. Lasted 4 or 5 years. In today's day and age, a guy 5'9". Remember what Tim was talking about the other day. Last week, they don't even scout anymore for pitchers that aren't 6'3", 240 pounds.
It's true.
Yeah. So he was the freak, and he won the heart of the city. Some players are bigger than the stats on their baseball cards, either from the way they come up in big games or for the way they capture the spirit of a city. And Timmy was that guy. Friday nights with the orange uniforms, and it was pretty cool having him as as a San Francisco Giant, and like I say, he lit up the Bay Area, and I was glad we were able to talk about him a little bit. Anything you guys want to add to it, or you know?
Well, the only thing that I can say is, you know, this run that the Giants have been on over the last 6 seasons or so, there have been some guys that have come and gone but have been very instrumental in their winning. You know, Lincecum, of course, had a huge role in their championships. But I'm even thinking of guys like Aubrey Huff and Marco Scudo, guys that were there for just a minute, and their contributions were huge. You know, one guy we never even hear about or talk about anymore is Brian Wilson. That guy was an incredible closer. And, of course, he went to the Dodgers, but he was huge in 2010. You know, these are guys, characters in their own rights that had just a big impact, you know, on the success of the Giants these last several years.
Wilson went to the Dodgers. Can you tell me? I kind of lost track, or at least my memory is not serving me. How did what happened?
It worked for a little while. I mean, he had another surgery. There were games the year after they won in 2010, I think. Yeah, 2011. They were in Colorado, about 5 games into the season, and he couldn't get anything past like 83 miles an hour, and so he just got it out the 9th inning. And then he ended up having to miss the rest of the year and had another surgery. Now you're talking about two surgeries for him. And the Giants, the Dodgers, thanks to Ned Colletti, they brought him in for a tryout. He ended up making the team, and he ended up pitching a lot of quality innings for the Dodgers for the first half of the year. And then the second half of the year, I think he just worn down. I remember I don't know if you guys remember this, but I remember when he came into San Francisco. I always liked him when I got to talk to him and all that, but I think he became more of a caricature of himself than an actual
with the beard and all that.
Yeah, with the beard and all that. And so, you know, he kind of made a spectacle of himself. I think after one game, I think they went over to Larry Bear and started yelling at him in front of people because he didn't get his ring when they asked him for that. And all this stuff. I don't know the whole story behind it, but I just thought it was in poor taste for him. And I liked him. I used to run into him downtown San Francisco, and he'd be very nice to people, and he was actually kind of a humble guy. But I think the on the field and the caricature part of it, and the character part of it, I think kind of took over for him, and kind of made him made him think he was bigger than life in terms of how he was around people. But I've never seen him get in trouble or do anything outside the field. Now all the other stuff on the field, that's a different story. But I just thought that was in bad taste to do that in public in front of Larry Bear, who brought you in and let you go through 2 surgeries and you win a world championship with him. So that was the only negative thing that I saw with him. And even though he was with the Dodgers and he has success with them, they haven't won. They didn't win with him. And he was the 8th inning guy, and he had some success. But it just goes to show that the game will humble you.
Well, you know, he would show other teams up, or what can be construed as showing other teams up, with his gusto and his look up to the heavens and all that. I don't know how he could have been a Dodger after that. I don't know how your dad, Timmy, could have been a Dodger. How you go from one with the greatest rivalry ever in sports, go from
it's such a unique thing, because with my dad, you had, first of all, it's about a job. That's how he made his living. You know, so he had to continue to work and provide for his family. That's how he earned his income. But I think that he was prepared because of the conversations that he was having earlier in that winter with Horace Stoneham about, you know, Horace said, we're going to, you know, Dietz is coming up. He's going to be our guy. I want to trade you. And then my dad said that his only real request to Horace was, you know, trade me to a West Coast club. My family's out here. I don't really care which club it is, you know, but if you can, make a deal with the West Coast club. Well, it just so happened that, all the pieces fit right with the Dodgers, and Dad was dealt to the Dodgers. Now, I don't know. I was never in his head, and I can't remember what he was thinking way back then either, but I know that it was a hard time for him initially. But once he got to Dodger Town, and he was their catcher. I mean, he was their bona fide starter. I think that the organization embraced him. The Dodgers had a reputation back then for being pretty well, they were disciplined, with the exception of maybe a Willie Davis or whatever like that. These guys played serious baseball. They didn't have the showmanship that you see a lot with the Dodger players today. And I think that was just reflective on the ownership of the O'Malleys. And one thing that my dad really embraced about the Dodgers back then was the O'Malley family and how they treated their players, and the family atmosphere that they had there at the time. Just like that, it was very similar to the Giants. But my dad ate it up. He took full advantage of his opportunity in Los Angeles, and he played extremely well for the Dodgers. And I think that, probably initially it was tough, but eventually he was a Dodger. And one thing the Giants regret is the fact that once they traded him, he was going to beat up the Giants, and boy, did he ever. His numbers against San Francisco were pretty astounding in his 4 years in L.A.
Yeah. You had some beautiful footage of Koufax throwing on your Facebook. I think you got it from YouTube, but I can't be certain about that, of Koufax throwing to your dad, and that was pretty cool.
Well, here's the thing. My dad, Koufax had retired before Dad played for the Dodgers, so it might have been Drysdale, because Koufax is already retired.
It was a commercial.
Yeah, it was a Vitalis commercial with Holden Franks and Don Drysdale, and it's kind of funny. I'll post it up there again on my Facebook page, because it's a hoot, really. Actually, it was really funny. Our lives changed as a family too. When Dad became a Dodger, we were in Hollywood. It was La La Land for us. We were exposed to things as kids that most children aren't. We went to Disneyland probably 40 times in the 4 years I was there, and we probably went to the beach, another 40 or 50 times. and then all of the other things down there, just the pomp and circumstance of Los Angeles is just over the top. And getting to meet a lot of the people that were involved in the film industry and entertainment industry, with the Hollywood Stars Nights and all of those things, and not to mention the legacies, left behind of these great players that once played for the Dodgers. They would come out and do old timer games back then, and it was really a lot of fun for a young kid my age. My memories are great of that era, and the ballpark was.
Did you get to meet Campy?
I did on several occasions, and he was such a sweet man, such a wonderful guy.
Tell me a little bit about how you got to meet him, the circumstances, and why you say.
One of the things that I really remember a lot about my father was his incredible thoughtfulness to have me meet great baseball players, and he made a big deal of it. And I can recall, he and Campy had a very good, close relationship. My dad had the utmost respect for him. But I recall specific times when, I was down on the field and it was batting practice before a ball game. I remember this very specifically, one like it was yesterday. I was standing around behind the batting cage at home plate, Dodgers were getting ready to start taking batting practice. And my dad said, come over here. And he was over on the first base side by the visitors' dugout. And Dad said to me, come over here. And I ran over to him, and he goes, I want you to meet two great baseball players. And I said, oh, okay. And the Pittsburgh Pirates were in town. And I got to meet Willie Stargell, and then probably one of my favorite players of all time, Roberto Clemente. And that kind of stuff resonated with me, and it still does to this day. When he would just think, hey, my kid's right here, I want him to meet these great Hall of Fame players. And it was just really cool. It was just really cool.
Very cool. Willie Stargell is from the town I'm living in and have been for the last 22, 23 years now. Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco in the East Bay. And there's a street, a major thoroughfare called Willie Stargell Avenue. And on the bus, when the bus goes by, the little computer there, next stop, Willie Stargell Boulevard or Willie Stargell Avenue. It's pretty cool, pops. And he went to Encinal High School, and I've gone out on the Willie Stargell field many, many times out here, and it's cool. And Clemente, how did Clemente become one of your favorites, just out of curiosity?
Well, I think a lot of it was I think it was because of my dad's great respect for Roberto. And then because my dad was so enthralled by him, I became enthralled by him. So I would watch every bit of, footage and replays and highlights and things that I could of Clemente. And, he was like a ballet dancer in right field. The guy was probably, I will not in my lifetime see another right fielder like Roberto Clemente. The way he handled right field, the way he threw the ball, just the way he ran, that long, lanky, he wasn't really muscular or anything. He was strong, wiry guy. He played so hard.
He warmed up in the batting. He'd get loose. He reminded me of Jesus Alou. Well, maybe Jesus Alou reminded me of Roberto Clemente. I think it's probably the latter. But he'd go through these contortions and to loosen up his back and this, that, and the other thing. And that was part of the charm, I think.
Well, it was. He was really the most prominent Latin American player up to that time. He really was. There was Carew and Oliva in Minnesota. But I can't.
There was Minoso before him.
And Luis Aparicio, too. But I think Clemente, statistics from a number standpoint, alongside Carew, at that time, they were the two probably greatest, Latin American players in Major League Baseball at the time, without a doubt.
The question that Clemente, the way it turned out with Clemente, he's absolutely the best. And had Carew not been hurt, what a sweet swing he had, and he was like Cepeda, who lost much of their games when their knee went. And,
that's true. I remember Rod Carew down in Anaheim. He was a tremendous hitter. He led them to their first division in 1979. He and Don Baylor were the two mainstays.
Well, I was talking about Oliva.
I'm sorry, Tony Oliva. Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Carew, too, exactly. Carew was terrific. Vasu, can maybe, because I've been so enthralled with the decline of the Mets this week, give me what's happening with the Giants, and you and Timmy can give me an idea of the path they're on. Do you think that things are looking good or not looking good? You guys know.
Well, I think it's a 50-50 shot right now. They got to get healthy, and they got to get their bullpen in order. Right now they're home, so it's a good week for them to get healthy. The Pirates come in, who I don't think are a very good team. They're definitely out of the tempo race. I think they're 5 or 6 games back in the wild card race. And they traded a lot of their guys. They traded their closer. But as far as the Giants go, they have Baltimore this weekend, who's a very good team. They've already lost one of those games. They're up tonight with Bumgarner. See how they play the rubber match if they end up winning this game. See how Sunday goes. And the Pirates for 3. And then your New York Mets for 4 from Thursday through Sunday, of which I'll be in San Francisco next Saturday because next Saturday is on Fox.
Is Saturday a day game for the Mets with the Giants
Saturday
next week?
Day game, I believe. Yeah, Saturday's a 1:00 game West Coast. Yeah. Thursday.
Well, I will be out there with Robert Medeiros, who's a podcaster on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and perhaps even Fred Lazarus, who works for the Giants, and maybe working out there. We may get to see him, so we'll take some pictures. At least 3 podcasters, maybe 4 if we can get Fred, will be at the Stick. That's pretty cool.
Well, look me up.
It's not the Stick, but to me, any ballpark in San Francisco that the Giants play in, it's still the Stick in my head. I go, it's at the Stick. And you appreciate that, Timmy?
I do. I was watching a little bit earlier a video somebody had put together of great highlights, Giants highlights at the Stick, along with some horrifically depressing music and the actual deconstruction of Candlestick Park all at the same time. And I thought, I don't need to watch this stuff. I'm going to be doing a show in a little bit. I want to be a little bit happier than this. But yeah, I agree with you.
Was the Willie catch when he robbed Bobby Bonds in right center field when they both climbed that wire fence? Was that on the highlight film? Because every time I think of
shot, no, that particular shot was not on it. We're talking about things like walk-off home runs, be it Brian, what was that kid's name, the catcher that came up in the late 90s?
Brian
Johnson home run. Joe Morgan's home run in '82 against the Dodgers to knock the Dodgers out of the National League pennant race, or at least the Western Division. Atlanta won it that year. Barry Bonds' first home run at Candlestick after signing as a free agent in '93. Will Clark's shot up the middle against the Cubs in the 87 or 89 playoffs. 89 playoffs. So they were like these incredible walk-off shots. They had a couple of World Series, 62 World Series clips in there. One, of course, which was the shot McCovey hit to Thompson at second, to what's his name at second base with the Yankees. So, but it was, and then of course the guy banging out Bobby Richardson, and then of course you got the guy with the sledgehammer knocking all the sheets out of Candlestick in the next frame. So I was just like, oh my God, how depressing is this? But you know, that ballpark at AT&T is so nicely built and so well laid out, and it is the Stick too. It's Candlestick number 2, but it's a much more accommodating ballpark for their fans.
It's my favorite park.
And they love going out. Those fans love going out there. They just love going out to AT&T and watching baseball, and they love their Giants, and it's great.
If anybody out there is too young to remember a night game at Candlestick, and they say, well, you know, it's pretty cold out there, and they gave the Claw-Day Candlestick a little brass pin to people who could sit through a night game, and they made a big joke. It was freaking cold. It was no joke. It was no joke, and it was really cold. And I grew up in New York, and I remember going out there a few times early on, like in '66 when I first came out here. And I remember going out to a Cincinnati Red game and sitting out there. I'm thinking, I'm in California. I'd been in California for 2 weeks. It was nice and warm in Fairfield, California, where Travis Air Force Base was, where I was stationed. where I hated it. They hated me. Never mind. And all of a sudden, I went out to the stick, and it was so cold one night. I'm telling you, no exaggeration. That notwithstanding, the players used it to their advantage. And I can remember stories of hearing people like Darrell Evans and talking, hey, we love to get people to come in to our park, and we'll use the cold to our advantage. How did they do that, Jim? How could players use the weather like that to their advantage?
Well, they didn't so much use the weather to their advantage, although that became a great thing for them.
Coping with the weather, coping with the conditions. How were they able to?
Well, the organization put heating in on the client on the Giants dugout side. The third base dugout did not have any heating on the bench. That's one thing. They had heating in the bullpen down in the right field side for the Giants, and they didn't do it in the bullpen for the visiting club. So that was one enticing and comforting thing for the visiting club when they came in to play Candlestick. But because the Giants had to play 81 games at home or whatever it was, that's what they became acclimated. They geared their game around that weather and that wind, and obviously they didn't have great success playing in that ballpark over the years before they got to AT&T in 01 or 2000. I mean, so they struggled to win mightily for many, many years at Candlestick Park. So it was not so much that it was beneficial to the Giants, but they tried to acclimate the best that they could, given that they were going to play that many games at home at that ballpark.
Right.
So.
Yeah, they had no choice.
They had these big Alaskan parkas that would go all the way down to their ankles. And
I remember those days.
Yeah.
They did, and you know what? The funny thing about it is, Morris Stoneham took a trip out west long before Walter O'Malley did, and when he went to go look at Candlestick Point, the day he went to look at Candlestick Point, it was one of those Chamber of Commerce days. It was the most idyllic, perfect day. It was probably in the middle of December, like a football weather game, and like the Niners, had the best weather for football. So he said, this is where I want to build my ballpark. He went into an agreement, and that's what happened. Now, had he done any other of the 363 days or 364 days of the year, he would have ended up in Los Angeles.
Right. Maybe you can tell me, Tim, because I heard that because of the wind kicks up at 3:30 in the afternoon. That I don't remember who he bought it from, but whoever he bought it from, they went over there at 10 o'clock in the morning when the wind was still, and that's what he loved about it because it was right on the point and right on the water. And so it never used to get windy until about 3:30 or 4 o'clock during the daytime, and then at 10 o'clock in the morning, when they went out to go look at it, it was totally still and totally calm. And that's the story that I heard when they went out there.
And that's very accurate. I mean, that's the time of the day he went, but it was also in the most idyllic time of the year. Mark Twain said it best: the coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco.
True.
So upon his return to New York, he met with Walter O'Malley. And O'Malley said, well, you're kind of the one that has taken this initiative. He said, I'll go wherever you don't want to go to. And that's how confident O'Malley was. And Stoneham said, we're going to go with San Francisco. Walter O'Malley
I didn't realize that O'Malley gave it to Horace to, you pick the one and I'll take the one you don't pick.
And that's kind of the folklore.
Interesting how that worked out. I heard that there was, when he went out there, that there was a mountain or a big hill that was holding back some of the the wind, and that when they built the ballpark, they had to tear that down, and that had a lot to do with it. But the pure cold and the wind really wouldn't have been as big an issue if the heaters that were built for the ballpark were for the fans in the stands. Each seat was supposed to be heated, and
of course, those failed miserably.
It never worked. Not one game did those things work, and like I say, it made it torturous to go out there at night. But the day games at the Stick, there was some great times, and you know, you go out there, and before you know it, you're not thinking about the weather. You're thinking, hey.
Yeah, even when I played, the only thing I hated playing when I was in college, and even going to attend games, you can handle the cold. You get acclimated to the cold. It's the wind that I never liked. The wind is the one that always got to me, and it's just terrible to play in because if you're either going uphill or you're going downhill, depending on which way it's blowing, and it's just terrible to play in. You can't judge anything. You can't do anything. You can play in cold, but because as long as the wind's not going, that's the way that I looked at it. So that's the only way that I looked at it.
Very good point. I also want to add something to what Tim said that Mark Twain said, the coldest day in in the summer, this, that, and the other thing. It's cold and windy in certain parts of San Francisco. But, you can drive across town and you can get out into the Mission and you could be warm as toast, and then you can go out to the sunset and you could freeze your bippy off, as they used to say. So it's where, unfortunately, the park itself was right on the water, as is the new park, but it's in a different part of town where the weather just isn't extreme.
And let me add to that, it is a candlestick night tonight at AT&T. I don't know if you've seen anything yet on television.
I've seen it.
But the wind
right now.
The wind is howling. It's chilly. It's cold. It is an August night in San Francisco. And I saw earlier Machado just pop up down the third base line because that wind just played havoc with that pop-up, and it ended up about 10 feet away back towards fair territory. He ran towards the dugout and then to the stands right there, and the ball dropped about near home plate of the bullpen, the Giants bullpen. Oh, it's a candlestick at AT&T Park tonight.
But it's still 20 degrees warmer.
So when do you fly back up here, Vasu? Are you going to be back up here tonight or tomorrow?
I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow morning.
Oh. Okay. So I hope to catch you out at the park. We'll touch bases before
Give me a call
Saturday, and maybe Tim can fly up and surprise us, get out of the heat. That'd
be great.
Well, I don't know if that's going to happen this coming weekend or the weekend coming up, but I'm planning on getting up there early September. The Rockies are going to be in town for a 4-day, I think it's a 4-game set. I'm not positive.
Early September is when I am headed back on Amtrak to New York, Jackson Heights, the neighborhood reunion at the 90th Street Park, right off Northern Boulevard in Jackson Heights, New York.
Very
a mile
sweet.
and a half
Wow.
from Shea Stadium, and I've got an Airbnb in the Heights where I grew up, and I'm so excited, and I've got one of these city pass things where I'm going to take Callie to all the places that I went to as a kid on school trips, the Statue of Liberty and the Smithsonian, and, well, not the Smithsonian, but the Museum of Natural History, and all these great things in New York, and she's never been back, and it's been a long time.
Oh, you guys have a blast.
I'm going back as a group, like a tourist. It'll be, and I'll announce this, I'm going out to where the site of the polo grounds were. They have a memorial staircase on Bushwick where you'd walk down the stairs into the Polo Grounds. The whole area is apartments, Polo Grounds apartments. And I have a Facebook friend who's turned out to be a real good buddy. His name is Ron Harvin, and Ron Harvin is an old New York Giant fan, even though he wasn't born when he was then, but he's got the tradition in him, and he loves the Giants, and he's going to take me on a tour of where everything was. You know, they have it all marked off where center field was and all this. So I'm very psyched about that. And get a little old New York Giants tradition while I'm back there.
Sounds like a great trip.
Yeah, sounds like fun to me, and I don't have to fly. We're going Amtrak, which is nice because I don't like flying. I don't like to do. I don't do. Reach a certain age, there's that expression again, but the heck with it, you say. Thank you, guys. A terrific show as usual. Let's do it again, same time, same at station next week.
Okay, guys.
Right. Hey, thanks, Vasu. Have a good week.
You bet. Take care.
Okay, thank you both. I
Thank
really
you, Ralph.
enjoy it, and everybody out there, I just want to tell you all to keep on keeping on, because that's the name of the game. See you next week.
Take care now.
Guys.